guys, it's Jimmy from over at Movie Death Blows. Got a chance to see Black Widow earlier in the week on Wednesday. I know I told you I was going to be able to put the review out last night. I didn't get around to it, so it's going to go up tonight, which is Friday. You'll be able to get it on Disney Plus and see it in theaters, worldwide pretty much at this point. So I mean, let's just jump right into it. It is great to have Marvel back on the big screen in theaters with its first release since the summer of 2019's Spider-Man Far From Home. I mean, I can say from my perspective it was a long, long wait because, I eat, live, and breathe this stuff. And the Disney Plus shows are a great barrier and something, like a bridge you can use to other stuff, but it's not the same as the theatrical experience of Marvel and the MCU in a whole. And let's just say the main question is, does Black Widow hold up to the standards that the other films in the MCU that we've grown accustomed to, since Endgame and Infinity War? Like, that was the big, the coup de grace, sort of, the crescendo of everything that we've been building up to for the last 12, 13, 14 years at this point. And I can honestly say Black Widow does not disappoint at all. The movie is absolutely incredible. It opens and you don't get the typical Marvel opening. Like, it doesn't open with the Marvel Studios thing. You don't get to see all the characters, coming together to say Marvel Studios or any of that stuff. But it's an incredible movie, and everybody needs to see it as soon as possible. It blew my mind how good it was. Obviously, we know Natasha Romanoff is played by Scarlett Johansson, but the movie is directed by Kate Shortland. I don't know, most people wouldn't. She's kind of like an indie director. Most people have probably never seen some of her work. I mean, I know I haven't seen any of it, and I see a lot of things. But I mean, that's what Marvel's become famous for, is taking, small indie directors and throwing them in big budget action movies, and it works, and it worked here again. So I mean, we know the story of Black Widow. I mean, she was a Russian operative spy for the Red Room, and then on the Budapest mission, they talk about it in Avengers a lot, that she transitioned from that side to the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. side, and then so she became a good guy. But I mean, this kind of shows you. So the movie opens with, David Harbour and Rachel Weisz are playing, like, their father figures, Natasha and Yelena's father figures. It's kind of like an American's Takeoff, like they're living in America. They've been undercover for 3 years trying to steal a disc at that point from the government. Then they get it and they have to flee, and that's, where we start to see where Yelena and Natasha grow old. And it has a great opening montage, kind of reminiscent of, like, old Bond movies from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s and stuff. I'm not sure why I said old-time Bond intro. I mean, because it really goes into the 90s and 2000s. It's, it's got that GoldenEye feel to it, that Skyfall feel. I mean, you'll see it. There's a lot of pictures and songs and stuff like that. That's great. Scarlett Johansson, this is her role. She's made it her own. There's no denying that she is Black Widow, even though I don't know if we'll see her in any future Marvel projects. I don't know what her contract looks like, but obviously we know how Natasha's story was left at the end of Endgame, so I mean, this is obviously a prequel of sorts. It takes place right after Captain America Civil War, so she's kind of on the run for disobeying the Sokovia Accords. We see William Hurt as General Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, chasing after her in the first couple scenes. He's de-aged a little bit, I think. They didn't say that strictly, that he was they used de-aging technology in him, but I know what William Hurt looks like, and he looked like younger William Hurt, so that's what I went with. Rachel Weisz gets a little de-aging stuff added to her as well. Florence Pugh, who plays Yelena, who is her, little sister pretty much grown up, she's a bona fide star at this point. I mean, if you haven't seen Fighting With My Family or Midsummer, you're missing out, because she's just great, and her introduction in this movie is, no different than that. So there's not going to be any spoilers or anything like that. I'm just going to go over the movie, what it's about and stuff, obviously. But Florence Pugh is great. She's incredible. She makes this entire movie her own. She pretty much steals the show from Black Widow in her own movie. And, Marvel has a history of doing that. I mean, Spider-Man kind of stole the show in Captain America Civil War. Black Panther stole the show in Civil War as well. It's like, everyone you've come accustomed to doesn't really carry the movie. Other people kind of take it from them. And then that's fine. Great characters are hard to come by. And Yelena's no different here. I mean, Florence Pugh does an incredible job. The comedic value, the banter between her and Natasha is great. It's reminiscent of Captain America and the Winter Soldier, which I mean by Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I mean like Sam Wilson and Bucky. Their banter back and forth is great. So is Don Cheadle and Robert Downey Jr. It's reminiscent of that. Like there's quips. It's funny. It's good. It's a little more humorous than I would like it to be, but it's still really good. One thing I wasn't sure about, so like when they do flashbacks for Natasha, she's using like a Russian accent when she's like in her Black Widow state. But then like, we're used to seeing her in movies without one. So like I'm curious if like she really has a Russian accent, but she's just using the American accent, or it's vice versa, or she can just switch from which to which. Like I don't know how she really talks, because when she's younger, when there's the flashback scene in the beginning, she has an American accent, and then when she's older, in the flashback, she has a Russian accent, so I'm not sure which is which at that point, which is confusing to me because I never thought about it before. Taskmaster is another great villain we get to see, but I mean, it's pretty cool to watch what they do with this villain. So they have it's like a mimic memory, so he can mimic anything he sees. I forget what they call it. Let me just look it up real quick. It's a photographic reflexes they call it. So pretty much like a photographic memory. If he watches something enough, they can get those moves down. So you'll see fighting styles of Iron Man, Black Panther, the Winter Soldier, Cap, Spider-Man, even Natasha herself. They can just mimic them, and it's pretty much like you're fighting yourself and you're fighting people have advantages over you at that point. There's not going to be, like I said, no spoilers. The Taskmaster reveal kind of fell flat for me when you actually see who Taskmaster is. Like, I mean, it's kind of a tease throughout the movie. I can't think of what the word I want to use for it here is, but it's foreshadow. Foreshadow. It's pretty much foreshadowed the whole time. You can tell if you're a frequent moviegoer who and why Taskmaster's personality is going to be revealed as. Doesn't take away anything from the moves you get to see. The fight scenes are incredible. The hand-to-hand combat. That's one thing Marvel does that no one has seemed to match. I mean, it's not like a cluster. It's like a cluster of fighting where you can't even really see what's happening. It's kind of in the vein of, the Bourne Identity movies where it's like a shaky cam and fighting at the same time, but the hand-to-hand techniques and the combat are incredible. Like I said previously, Daredevil probably has the best hand-to-hand fight coordination you'll see in anything recently. It's reminiscent of the old Jackie Chan, Jet Li, Kung Fu movies of back then. Just the hand-to-hand techniques, and no one's invincible. Everybody gets tired at some point. Ray Winston is in this. Ray Winston's great in everything, but he does a horrendous Russian accent in this movie. I don't know. Like, Ray Winston's British in real life. I get it. But the accents are. His accent and Rachel Weisz's accent don't really work the whole time. Like, you can tell they're just doing this for the movie. They could have just talked regular and it would have been fine. Ray Winston plays General Dreykov. He's the head of the Red Room. He's a Russian general that was in charge of, the spies back then in, like, the Cold War era. So, I mean, he's in charge of the Red Room. He has all these widows going around under his control. And, like, with Natasha and, like the second generation of widows, they use, like, brainwashing. But now, like, the big plot device in Black Widow is they can pretty much control you from a computer and make you do whatever they tell you to do. If they want you to stop breathing, you'll stop breathing. There's buttons for that and everything. You'll get into it and you'll see what the big reveals and the plots are with that. That's not a spoiler or anything like that. Rachel Weisz is, I was mentioning, she's DA. She plays like a mother figure for Natasha. In the beginning when they have like the whole American scene where they're undercover in the 80s. She gets shot and they come back and they don't know if she's still alive or not. And it turns out she's one of the Red Room's like big scientists and stuff, and she's been working on helping to control the widows that are in play now. David Harbour, the man, the myth, the legend. I've met him once and he was incredible in person. He's great in everything. It's really weird to see how far he's come since I first started watching stuff he was in. Like, I can remember him in Quantum of Solace as like the random bureau chief for the CIA, and then he shows up in Stranger. He wasn't like a star then. He was just like a bit player. Like, he would character actor just come in and do it here. And now, he's been Hellboy. He's been in Stranger Things. He's done his own stuff at that point, and now he's just bigger than life at this point. And he plays Red Guardian, whose alter ego is Alexei. I can't even pronounce that name. They just call him Alexei. So he's pretty much like the Russian Captain America at that point, and he ends up in jail, and then they'll go over that in the movie, and he keeps telling everyone in jail that he fought Captain America in the '80s, and they're like, well, I mean, Captain America was frozen in ice until like 2010, so I don't think that happened, but okay. I don't know if Alexei actually believes that, because he's asking Natasha if Cap ever said anything to him about fighting her, and she's like, no. There is an amusing part where Florence Pugh's character is just like, yeah, they've left you alone because they know if they take you out, they'll piss off one of the big ones, and then they'll come after you. You're like, well, who are the big ones? She's like, like the god of space and time. I don't think he's going to run out of breath or get some bruises from getting in a fight with a couple Black Widows. It's just, that's some of the banter I was talking about. Florence Pugh's great, and I'm going to reiterate that over and over again. Olga Kurylenko shows up. Most people might know her. She was a Bond girl back in the day, another Quantum of Solace alumni like David Harbour. She played Camilla, I think, in Quantum of Solace. Again, you'll see when you see the movie. I'm not going to give anything away there. I don't think I'm missing, but there is only one post-credit scene for Black Widow. Not going to reveal it here, but it does have future consequences for the MCU and where they're going to be going with that. I don't know how they're going to handle it, but it's going to be pretty interesting when it comes down to it. It's so the post-credit scene, I'm not going to tell you what happens in it, but it pretty much takes place after Endgame, so Natasha's already gone at this point, and it picks up from that point. Julia Louis-Dreyfus, we know, shows up in this movie, like that was teased after she showed up in Falcon and the Winter Soldier as Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. She's only at the end. You'll see her. I mean, this was all news that was reported after we saw her in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, so I'm not giving anything away at that point. Everybody pretty much knows she's going to be in this because she was supposed to show up in this first and then Falcon and the Winter Soldier, so we kind of got introduced to her in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Now we'll see her again in Black Widow in the post-credits scene. You'll figure out what happens there, but it will have long-lasting stakes for the MCU. Overall, Black Widow gets a 5 out of 5 for me. I was blown away by the entire thing. It took me back to the spy movies of old, and it brought it to like the MCU of today, and it worked very well. Kate Shortland, everybody involved, Kevin Feige, as usual, should be very proud of what they've done here. It was. I don't want to compare it to Captain Marvel. Like, I just want to compare movies to movies. For Black Widow is a top 10 MCU movie of all time. I can say that confidently without any issue at all. That's just. Movie's 2 hours and 20 minutes. Didn't feel long at all. Never lagged. It was never boring. The action is always there. The twists and the plot devices are always there. Scarlett Johansson, I'm not sure how much of her own stunts she does, but if she does a lot of them, they were incredible. Like I said, the fight scenes, the hand-to-hand combat. Nothing seemed jumbled. Like, there wasn't like a mess of action going on where you're like, I have no idea what just happened. I mean, when you have great actors, a good director, and great writing, you can pretty much expect Marvel to pull out all the stops there, and they did. Scarlett Johansson, Florence Pugh, David Harbour, Rachel Weisz, Ray Winston. I hope I didn't. William Hurt shows up for like one scene, doesn't really get to say much, but these are all, Rachel Weisz has an Oscar, William Hurt has an Oscar. These aren't people that are, unfamiliar with, big time roles and big time movies, and they pulled out all the stops for Black Widow. I was skeptical when they announced this movie and it was going to be a prequel. I was like, I don't know how they're going to do this, how it's going to work, but I'm done questioning Marvel a long time ago. Once they got Guardians of the Galaxy to work with a talking raccoon and a tree, they can do whatever they want. They can do no wrong at this point. And again, Black Widow doesn't disappoint. 5 out of 5. I'm really pumped for the future with some of the characters we're probably going to see crossover into future MCU properties. Like I said, Florence Pugh is Yelena Belova. We're definitely going to see her later on because this is a star that Disney and Marvel have now, and she's going to probably get her own movie and her own TV show at some point. I mean, when you see this movie, you're going to be blown away by the performance you get from Florence Pugh. I'm astounded by how good she is in everything. So Black Widow, 5 out of 5 for me. Go see it in theaters. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, all that stuff. I'll be back with future reviews and future news. Thanks.